वेलकम टू मेन स्ट्रीम विद हरप्रीत ਸਿੰਘ ਤੂਰ। ਆਪ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, ਆਦਾਬ ਐਂਡ ਸ਼ਲੋਮ। ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਫੀਫਾ ਵਰਲਡ ਕੱਪ ਫੁੱਟਬਾਲ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਆਈ ਵਾਸ ਟਾਕਿੰਗ ਲਾਸਟ ਸ਼ੋ ਆਲਸੋ, I had just come back from Doha, Qatar, watching live and also watching the fan zone, fun zone, fan festival and fan zone areas where they have specially set up where you can watch the games. Today it was Argentina versus Croatia. Argentina got 3-0. They are in the final now. Tomorrow is going to be the semi-final between France and Morocco. That's something, that's amazing. The run, this World Cup has been amazing. Argentina lost to Saudi Arabia, who never qualified even for the quarterfinal stage. The very first game they lost, and they lost it by a substantial number of goals. Since then they have come together to be where they are today. They have put their pieces together, and tomorrow French and Morocco, they are going to be, I don't know, sometime, when you look at it, the game between England and France, England played better but could not score. And the captain for the British team, Kane, he missed one of the penalty kick. That would have tied England and France 2-2 and got them into the overtime. But there is one thing for sure, that England played a better game. They have younger team, and they are looking forward to now 2026. Which is going to happen between Canada, US and Mexico. And as we go along, we will talk about it, we'll see. But there's something which I want to also share with you, which is very personal to me. Coming from a soccer family, basically I can claim myself to come from a soccer family, because Mera Chacha, my dad's younger brother, he was a soccer player. He played with the East Bengal, Mohammedan, Mohan Bagan, Mahindra and Mahindra, Dempo, Leader, and he played basically throughout the world at his prime time. And I still remember in 1971 Punjab actually won the Santosh Trophy after 28 years, and I still remember the moment when we were sitting at our house, the team got declared, and my chacha was announced to be the captain of the team. And he enjoyed drinking. He loved to have the drink. And he picked up his glass, finished his glass, and put it on the table, and he said, "This is where the Santosh Trophy is going to be." And that's where the Santosh Trophy was at the end of the tournament. Interestingly, the goalkeeper at that time was Charanjit Singh, and Charanjit Singh's son actually lives in Indianapolis now, and we are close family friends, very close friends, more with my brother than me, because my brother who lives in Indianapolis. It's interesting that how the things end up. But to cut the whole story short, my elder son played soccer. My younger son was the captain of the team throughout his college years. First year Rookie of the Year, and the next 3 years he was captain. And so you can tell the way I talk, the passion and everything. So, and tomorrow is going to be the second semi-final, and Sunday is going to be the final. I think people, we need to watch the game, look at the game, sit back and see. And there are also some differences of how the game is played. American and other European countries play soccer in a different style than South Americans, which includes actually Argentina and Brazil, Uruguay, all those teams. And Morocco is actually playing the mix of both. And we'll see what happens tomorrow, and whoever wins tomorrow is going to meet Argentina in final. And Messi, I love his game, the way he plays. And this probably is going to be his last World Cup. I don't know if he will play 2026. Probably if he wins, if Argentina wins the Argentina or Argentina, whatever you prefer to call it, if they won the final this year, then Messi may not return. There is a more probability that he may not come back. But in case they don't, then he may come back. It's something like that, give or take, but we don't know. But anyway, enjoy, and the face when the game finished today, I was looking at the smile on Messi's face. It was amazing. And yes, wherever one reaches, it takes grit, dedication, and working hard. And I want our own team from India to be somewhere around there. Definitely, they can do it if they want to. If they take out the politics, I know that there is a, there are people who play the soccer to that level, but those people basically they need what would I call that? They definitely need non-political people to come in and make the team and pick up the team and advance. USA this time they lost in quarterfinal, but the team is young and they actually are looking at 2026 when they picked up the team. They were not even looking at 2022. So that is how I think India also need to look at and work on it so that they can have a team in 2026 which can play into the World Cup. And also the roster will be 48 countries. This time it was 32. So it's going to be expanded to 48 countries. Whatever the grouping will be, I don't know yet. Even FIFA hasn't declared yet, but we will see, and we'll keep you posted. Now coming to some of the things happening here. Last time when I was here, we were talking about Georgia election. The voting was still going on, but I was telling probably Warnock will get re-elected, which happened. Now this is where American politics is different from all other places. Okay. Democrats, they were celebrating that they got finally a majority of 51 senators so that they can have their own committees, because in 50-50 Senate you have to negotiate with the other party. In this case, Republican. Had it been a Republican president, then it would have been the other way around. How the committees are set up, the balance between the committees, the number of chairmen within the committees, you have to negotiate with the opposition party, which was since 2020 election, for last 2 years, 2021 and up till the end of this year, 2022. That's how it was divided. Senate was 50-50, and Democrats, Kamala Harris, the vice president, has to break the tie. They were cheering, but they haven't finished their cheering when Sinema from decided to go independent. She is up for re-election in 2024. She probably did her own calculations in Arizona that how it will play, how the things would go, whatever the reasons are. She was always hard to bring to the table. She had her own demand, and the the rich millionaires and billionaires, the industry, they actually are funding her like crazy because when the laws are passed, how the laws are passed, that affects the production and everything of, and how the money is distributed. That's another factor to it. And she was one, along with Mnuchin from Virginia, who actually held back some of the priorities for Joe Biden administration, the President Joe Biden, and they made him to cut on a lot of things, infrastructure, the bill which was passed to give the money to the people after COVID, even earned income credit to the kids, because Joe Biden wanted that earned income credit should be paid on monthly basis as we go along. But between Sinema and Mnuchin, they did not let it happen. It was active only for some time, and after that, till December of last year, and in January it got totally cut off. So as we talk, it's not there. It would have been actually the object was to give the money as you go along instead of giving the money lump sum, because lump sum money gets spent and then the people look for the money, they don't have the money. So now again, yes, Sinema is still going to be chairman of some of the committees, but how this whole thing will unravel, we don't know yet. There are already some Democrats who are planning to challenge her in the primary. In Arizona, there are a huge number of independents. Arizona is the top state where you have maximum number of, where you have more independent than the people who are registered either as a Democrat or Republican. So maybe that is one of her calculation. We don't know. We will not know till the things, happen, or she puts up her cards on the table, which I doubt she will do till end of next year. But then again, we have to see. And I always talk about my opinion about independent. I was watching a show on CNN, Smarkanish. I don't know how many people watch that show. And he has registered himself as independent, and he was actually cheering up Sinema being independent. And I personally, my personal opinion is that independent, yeah, you don't have to register yourself independent. You should have your thoughts as an independent. Yes, you get elected as a Democrat or a Republican, but if you are registered as independent, you do not have any say who the candidate should be or will be in the final election. By the time the general election takes place, the candidate is already decided by one party or the other, and you are left with, one of the better out of the worst to pick up if you are independent. But if you are registered with a party, you definitely can play a role, like Marjorie Great Taylor, MGT. How much she is part of the mainstream, we don't know. We are going to talk about it definitely, as the show go along. I'm going to talk about how the things are being discussed by her. And that is something which we need to take a look at. And there are other things happening as we move along, including how and when, if there are going to be any charges filed against the former President Trump. Let's take a break. After the break, I will be right back. ਵੈਲਕਮ ਬੈਕ ਟੂ ਮੇਨ ਸਟ੍ਰੀਮ ਵਿਦ ਹਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੂਰ। ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ ਫੇਰ ਆਪ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, ਆਦਾਬ ਐਂਡ ਸ਼ਲੋਮ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਜੁਆਇਨ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। Yeah, we were talking about there are some on American political side. We were talking about the funding for the government has to be approved by the Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives before it becomes a law. even though Mitch McConnell, the minority leader, is saying that he may punt the bill till March of next year, but at the same time later on this evening he issued a statement they are very close to making a deal. So that's typical Mitch McConnell, because he will not disclose what he is holding. He will definitely discuss with the people he believes he is close to, but even to those people, I don't know how much he discloses about the way he will play the cards. But like I always say, I love him, but I don't like his policies. Again, that's give and take. I personally, he is actually going to be the longest serving Republican Senate majority leader, even though he's a minority leader, because Republicans are in minority. But for the Republican to lead the Senate as a leader, he just got reelected for next 2 years. So technically he will be the longest serving leader of the Republicans in the Senate in the history of US. There are reasons for that. He was the first one actually who literally complained about the quality of the candidates of the Senate. Even though there are some candidates who won, like J.D. Vance in Ohio, who at one point was totally anti-Trump, but then he turned over, Trump endorsed him, he won. But every candidate Trump endorsed did not win. Most of them they lost. Only 2 of them they won, and I think out of 14, about 12 lost the election. Now he has declared to be the president of the United States again, and there are a lot of discussions going on about him being a candidate. There are people who are saying we like his policies, but we want somebody else. What policies? I have no idea what policies they are talking about, except to play the role of a bully and giving the money to the super rich people. Beyond that, as far as the presidential decorum was concerned, it was not there. The way he treated the people, it was not there. When you are at that position, you are not a boss of a mafia group that you dictate the people the way he did it. But then again, he grew up with the mafia people, so maybe that's where he got his thing from. I hope somebody will do some research and write a book on how he became what he became. There are a lot of books coming out, but still something which actually is going to pinpoint everything is still, I'm still waiting for it. But in the meantime, even the Judge Cannon, who actually had sided with the former President Trump previously, she yesterday ruled against him. And those documents which were actually recovered from Mar-a-Lago, which is his current resident, of the former president, those are the documents, if you or I are on the street carrying it, immediately we will get arrested, put behind the bars, and nobody will even come to defend us. That's how much sensitive that information is. And definitely when he was the president, a lot of sensitive information was being shared with him, being passed on to him, and how much he shared with the other leaders which he spoke to, including Vladimir Putin, where he literally had one-on-one meeting with the person who was translator. What he said, only she knows, and what transpired behind there, nobody knows. But in the meantime, there are a few things coming out, including a deal in the Middle East where Trump actually is going to get paid billions of dollars to use his name in one of the golf resorts in the Middle East countries. So what I'm saying is, United States, this country was based on certain principles. Yes, discrimination is there, which we always, that's a human nature. it is coming, the people are getting over it, how to treat the other person like a fellow human being, you know. But like Guru Gobind Singh Ji mentioned, you know, ek noor te sab jag upajya kaun phale ko mande. So this is something, you know, we are from one source, it's different, doesn't matter where we were born, but how to treat them. I grew up in India. When I was there, I spent my rest of my life here for last 40 years now. Another couple of weeks left. It will be exactly 40 years that I landed at Kennedy Airport. I've seen that how it is, but that's where the difference comes into the working of the government and being anybody, or being the president or a senator or a congressman. And that bar has been brought so low that the pot shots are being taken at the other people. The nicknames are given to the other people in a very funny way. And that also brought me to Marjorie Taylor's saying that she said that had it been to her and Bannon, Donald Trump still would have been the president, and they would have fought out that fight, the war that she said on the Capitol Hill on January 6th. The January 6th committee actually is going to release their report, and that is again going to be something which needs to be discussed, and we definitely will discuss that once we are there. But for me, the issue is actually that how America came to this low. It was never like this, but it has, this divide has been going on for last couple of decades now, if I may say. And I think one of the reason is because since Richard Nixon's resignation from the White House, even though he never got impeached, he actually resigned before getting impeached. He was about to get impeached. So they have never gotten over that, the Republicans, and that actually has brought that divide to the point where everything is looked at from a very narrow angle. It used to be that America being a world power, how to expand the sphere of that power. Now China is threatening on one side, Russia-Ukraine war is on the other end. During the former President Donald Trump's presidency, there were differences with NATO and the US. Thanks to the President Joe Biden, he has narrowed those differences, but at the same time, some of the policies which were implemented by the then President, former President Donald Trump, they are still there. For example, the tariff on the goods, which is, you know, the added cost to the European, and European are actually getting more closed door. Americans are getting more closed. So in other words, that open shores for the transfer of goods manufactured in one country to the other, they are getting narrowed down now. And US has definitely passed a $52 billion bill for spending the money on invention of the next generation chips and high-tech industry. That actually has made Europeans a bit angry at US, because they are saying that US is by backdoor subsidizing the money which is being spent by these countries, these manufacturers, by providing them the subsidy on the investment, which is true. At the same time, China is now being declined some of the high-end chips. Japan just joined that. Apple is moving some of its manufacturing out from China, and India is going to be the beneficiary of that move. It is not that everything is being moved to India for manufacturing, because it takes time, but it is definitely happening. And also in Vietnam, believe it or not, this is where, when we talk about that how the countries work, this is where the country, they look at long term, they don't look at short term. And that is something which, when we talk about the lack of understanding, the governments have their own priorities, the people have their own priorities, and then the subset of the people, they have their own priorities. And if they don't understand, that's where we get bogged down. I'm hoping you understand what I'm saying. I don't want to go into the detail on that. But at the same time, yes, India is going to get quite a bit share of that manufacturing, not from Apple, but some other also high-tech industries. But at the same time, Ford pulled out from India for any further manufacturing of autos in India. They may go back, I don't know yet, but we will see. And some of the people, they talk about India being the next superpower. India will never be the superpower. There are reasons for that. First of all, and on top of it is the corruption, and we need to look at that. Then resources and the people, that's another thing. So let us take a break. After the break, we are going to talk about some other factors which are going to be beneficial for US and India in their relationship, and at the same time how India's relationship with Russia plays the role, and then Iran also is another factor into it, right after the break. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. Yeah, we were talking about India being a superpower, the role of China, the manufacturing, the COVID effect. When we look at internationally, we are basically focused on our immediate needs, and it's very rare that we look at a lot of other things which affect everything in this world. So COVID policy in China, zero tolerance policy, actually was one of the factors that why some people, especially the people who have the iPhone, and I'm one of them, I love it. The iPhone 14, they have to wait. The reason is because of zero tolerance policy of the COVID in China. The manufacturing by Foxconn is behind the schedule, the factory is closed. And even though China recently, after the demonstration and everything, loosened up some restrictions, and the role behind that was a letter from the chairman of Foxconn to the party, that how it is affecting everything in China and how China in the long run will lose. And that is exactly what is one of the reasons that why they loosened up a little bit. But in the meantime, Apple is already looking to manufacture their future iPhones 15, 16, 17 and onward at different locations. Like I mentioned, Vietnam, India, right here in United States. The chip actually will be manufactured right here in United States. And integration of all these, it's amazing that how these people, they look at the things and then they work on it. And again, that also takes me actually back to Doha for the World Cup, that how a country like Doha, where the temperatures are so high, number one, they moved it to November to make when the temperatures actually start cooling down. But also, not only that, they also have the issue with keeping the temperature cool at that stadium, and they use these huge mechanized vents under the seats where the cool air will come and it will keep the temperature within the stadium at a lower level. And how these things they were able to manage, do it. And like I was mentioning, you go to the shopping center, the cool air comes actually from the ground to keep the temperature low. That's a mechanical feat which they have achieved in Qatar. And it will be replicated down the road because Saudi Arabia is creating another city and maybe they will do it over there. But going back to where we were about the international situation and how United States is going to play the role in that. Iran actually was one of the suppliers to Russia about those drones, the killer drones. They are kamikaze, like they say it. If those people who don't know what kamikaze was the term, it is the term actually, a Japanese term where you go in with the intent that you will not come back. You will die to achieve what you want to achieve and fight it out than surrendering to the enemy. And from that, they picked up the term for these drones. Those drones are specifically designed in a way that they will not come back to the base. They will just take off, you feed in the target, and you monitor it, they will go and they will smash into it. And that is what Russia actually used to attack the utilities and other infrastructure within Ukraine. And a whole lot of area within Ukraine, they do not have electricity or the power. They lack heating equipment, and the people literally are living in, pre-industrialization age, where you have to survive by burning the woods to warm your house and stuff like that. So now United States actually and some other NATO countries, they are helping Ukraine to fight this war. This is the war, even though Putin started, depending on who to believe and who not to believe. Putin is telling his people that they were forced into this war because West was constantly pushing close and close and close into Russia. Whatever is remained of Russia, it used to be USSR. USSR broke. Then the countries after USSR broke, those countries which were part of USSR, they have joined NATO. For example, Poland. So now those countries who were neutral, Finland, Switzerland, they are also planning now to join NATO. They have already put in their application because they are exactly next to Russia and they don't like what is happening in Ukraine. Let's not forget, Ukraine had nuclear weapons when USSR broke. Ukraine was part of USSR. Those nuclear weapons were removed from Ukraine under a guarantee by Russians as well as other nuclear powers, the world powers, the China, England, France, and US and Russia, all those five, that their safety is guaranteed. Was it really guaranteed? Now Ukraine got attacked by Russia. So in other words, yes, they did sign on the paper, but who is watching, who is taking them to stand up to the commitment? We don't know. Right now nobody is doing it except the countries in NATO and USA, United States. They are actually helping Ukraine fight it out with every possible mean. And now they are also planning to provide them Patriot missile, which actually is the missile which is used to manage incoming missiles and kill them before they hit the ground. And if that happens, Ukraine will have one of the most advanced systems on the earth to counter Russian attacks on their infrastructure. But in the meantime, these countries are helping. Now, Iran and Russia, they are both with each other. They are actually helping each other. They were always helping each other, but not directly as they are doing now as we talk. And the reason is because in Ukraine war, Russia needs Iran more than anything else. And Iran always needed Russia, especially with that atomic agreement, which Iran had with the world powers plus Germany. They call it 5+1 agreement because in those 5 world powers, Germany is not part of that, but Germany was part of the negotiations, which again, the former President Donald Trump pulled out, and Iran started its process of getting enriched uranium for the atomic bomb, which again Israel even though has, but it's not declared, and they don't want Iran to have nuclear weapon at all. And that goes to Saudi Arabia and Iran because it's a Shia and Sunni issue. So it's a very complicated issue. It may not look that, but it is much more complicated than what it appears. Now, looking at that, when we talk about all these issues, we need to look at one thing, that once a nuclear weapon is used, or like Chernobyl happened, that area cannot be used for centuries at least, if not for thousands of years, because of radioactivity and everything. And that area is dead, out of reach for the human living and everything. So even though Putin is threatening to use nuclear weapon against Ukraine, and everybody is sitting on the edge of their chair because nobody knows what he will do and what he will not do. There definitely is backdoor negotiations going on, if I may say so. How those things happen, we will talk right after the break. Welcome back to Mainstream for the final segment of the show. Let me add a few things when we talk about what is happening right here in the United States and how it is linked directly or indirectly with what happens internationally. US, whenever it came down to international issues, whether it was Democrats or Republicans, they were united behind the president for any decision taken by the president. If they had issues, they will take that issue quietly with the president and let him know. I can't say her because so far we do not have any president who was a female of the United States. So till then, it is just going to be him. They would let him know about what they did not like and where they had the issues. But for the last couple of years now, those things are actually being chipped away. Openly having dissent with the president, openly telling that I don't agree with the president, openly including even today saying that Joe Biden did not get more votes than Donald Trump. On the contrary, which even Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump. That's a different issue, that because of the system in this country, he was not the president, it was Donald Trump who was the president. On the same scenario, former President Trump refuses to accept his liabilities and his defeat. So that actually has created a new generation of deniers, and that has actually affected the standing of US internationally in other countries. even though the current election which just happened, majority of the people who lost, they just admitted it. Okay, except the one in Arizona, she said that she is not accepting. She lost by 17,000 votes. She is refusing to accept that she lost. She actually went to the court right now, and she is another one of those Trumponian deniers of the election. So these are the things which actually affect the standing of any country, especially the democratic setup. And when it comes down to the democratic setup, I always say about it that not because I'm a Sikh and I happen to know a bit about Sikhism, but it's a fact that within Sikh religion, Panj Pyara is a concept of democratic setup. Even though other countries are now picking up democratic society, democratic setup, and everything is happening. In any democracy, two things are very important. One is participation. Number two, acceptance. If we don't participate, then we should not be complaining about the acceptance to begin with. But if we participate and if we don't get the votes which we were expecting and we lose, then we should be gracious enough to accept that. Al Gore, when he admitted, even today I say, he did not lose the election. It was the Supreme Court's 5 Republican appointed justices who gave George W. Bush his presidency. And Al Gore graciously accepted that judgment from the Supreme Court, instead of having the riots on the street or having the fight and drag it out. Just imagine how the former President Donald Trump would have reacted to that had that scenario been there. Okay? Herschel Walker, his speech was one of the admirable speech after the defeat when he gave it. And he did mention in that democracy should be preserved and it should be respected, and the law and order should be respected. Whereas, on the other hand, contrary to that, the former President Trump was saying that Constitution should be suspended and he should be made president or the king, if I may say so. And there are some Republicans who are talking about it now, including the chair of the Republican National Committee, which right now she is trying to protect her seat as a being chair, because like I had mentioned in the last show, that she is being challenged by another election denier, Harpreet from California, which happens to support Trump. So even Nikki Haley, who was supporting Trump, she has actually drawn a line between him. The biggest line actually got drawn by Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who is also planning to run to be the governor, to be the president. I'm going to read his statement. Let me see if I find it right now. It's his statement was amazing when he said, nope, I can't find it right now, but he did mention one thing here in the statement that, okay, yeah, I got it. This is what Associated Press just reported. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, who is considering running for president on Tuesday, which is today, called a third Donald Trump White House bid the worst scenario for Republicans. And his call for terminating parts of the Constitution hurts the country. what I'm wondering is, like Trump's, one of the former President Trump's niece mentioned, that worst of Trump is still to come out. With all these things, how it will affect the United States. I said at the beginning of the show that I love Mitch McConnell. I don't like his policies. And I'm pretty sure that Mitch McConnell is going to come out, and he's one of those politicians who can read and take a stand and make the statements and wait till the things happen. Like when he mentioned about picking up wrong candidates, there were people, including Rick Scott, who from Florida, the senator, who actually is also planning to run to be the president of the United States. He literally criticized Mitch McConnell, and he was actively working to be the next minority leader in the U.S. Senate. But as the candidates, the Senate candidates, which Rick Scott was part of picking up the team, they lost, and Republicans lost the majority. Even though he challenged Mitch McConnell, but he challenged for different reasons, not for the same reason. Initially he was planning to replace him, but then he changed. So Mitch McConnell is one of those rare lights which I see that he may deliver something down the road, probably after taking U.S. House takes charge on January 3 in the Capitol, because we still don't know who the speaker is going to be, because McCarthy has his own issues. And McCarthy may never become the issue. Even some of the Republicans are saying that the person who actually refused to accept the results of Joe Biden being the president should never be the Speaker of the House. And there are other Republicans who are election deniers. They don't want him to be the Speaker of the House, including U.S. Rep. Green. So how and who will be the Speaker? Mitch McConnell is going to wait for that, and after that, he is going to make his move. And that is something which I am waiting for to happen, because till that happens, we will not know how and which way U.S. is going to go. But I definitely have confidence in him and the current President Joe Biden. Like I always say, I liked him. He is going to prove a good statesman in history, and we will see it. Till next time, good night and good luck.